Hey folks, how y'all doing? We are back. 20 months in seclusion, but we are back with McGold-RIFFS. And this is episode number 32, and it's really just great to be out of the house and doing our normal things again. And as you can hear, I've once again brought you one of the great guitar players in the Boston area, Mr. Marquis. Let's hear a nice a round of applause. And really looking forward to this episode. I've been following him on social media for years, and I just love his sound. I love the sorts of things he's doing. So let's hear a little bit more about Mark for a second here. Mark Marquis was born in a musical family in Leominster, Massachusetts in 1954. And for you young people, that's the Eisenhower administration. And most people don't know who Eisenhower was. So he and I go back. We're about the same age, essentially. His father, Bernard Marquis, was an avid trumpet player. And that's always a great advantage when you have somebody in the family who's also sort of leading you in terms of music. He was also decorated in terms of service with the Army during World War II, and afterwards in his free time for managing at the grocery store. Having taken much from the world of music himself, the patient veteran encouraged his 4 sons in their own pursuits of the trumpet, piano, guitar, bass, and drums. The third born was Mark here. And the first experience of getting his hands on an instrument came from sneaking away his older brother's guitar and figuring out melodies by ear, which is, to the young people out there, practicing is great. As much as you can have your hands on a guitar is great, but when he and I were young kids, we didn't have the advantage of YouTube and someone telling you exactly how to play something. What I would do, driving my sisters crazy and my mother crazy, would be listening to watching Hogan's Heroes, McHale's Navies, or one of those sorts of things, and figuring out the melodies. You know, you can do that. You don't have to know the notes for that. But if you can use your ears to figure out a melody of any commercial or anything like that, and don't plug in because you'll really drive them crazy, but just give that a shot. And we'll talk a little bit about that sort of thing. It was with his background that the 9-year-old Mark sat in front of his family's television on February 9th, 1964, which any guitar player born, I'd say, between 1945 and 1957, most of us were watching TV on that fateful night in 1964, which was an amazing night. If you remember, John, our president, was killed a few months earlier in November of '63, and the Beatles just brought this country together. It will never be replicated. Nothing will ever touch that. And thousands of guitar players influenced that. Millions?
Yeah, millions.
Millions. Back in those days, guys, everybody had a band. Everybody had a band, but it was 64 started. The Beatles played in the U.S. for the very first time on the Ed Sullivan Show that night. The performance confirmed to him and many others that music was the area to which he wanted to dedicate his life, which is not easy to do, guys. It boasted both his persistent practicing and pursuit of new knowledge. In the following years, Marquis went on to dedicate himself to the guitar and piano, playing in many different styles and eventually also composing vast original works for both instruments, piano and guitar. In the public, he's made a name for himself in rock, jazz, and by his unique blending of the two, which is something I try to do as well. Though largely self-taught on the guitar, crediting much of his skill set to ear training. Let me start. I keep on interrupting. Ear training. You can't get enough of that. Your ears are really how you can make a living. There's a great guy. I don't know if you watch Rick Beato on YouTube. Yeah. Rick Beato has a great bunch of tools that he sells on the internet. Check him out. Most guitar players that I know are watching him and listening to him. And again, we learn on the go. Many of us, 99.9% of us are self-taught. Yes, I went to Berkeley. I had a lot of that sort of thing. But I would say 99% of what I do is self-taught. He's intended to 2 parties for the mastery on jazz piano, which I haven't really heard you play jazz piano. In particular, his uncle Frank Tisdale, the area's most prominent piano teacher during the 50s and 60s, provided a young Marquis with his first training in classical repertoire. Later he learned a great deal about improv from his time under the tutelage of the late Charlie Bonacos. You worked with him, huh? Yeah. And all the monsters, and I never did. I was actually afraid to do that with him. I mean, he was a sax player, right?
Piano player.
Oh, piano.
Yep.
But he taught every instrument, you know?
Yeah. Taught improvisation.
Exactly. That was what he was teaching, and that must have been. I want to talk about that. I skipped that. Marquis has been a full-time professional musician since the mid-'70s, playing thousands of concerts, club gigs, all through the New England area. His main performing ensemble, the Marquis Group, has subsisted for several decades, and to date has released 6 CDs of original works. The longtime group features many respected musicians in their own right, including Bob Simonelli, Jerry Sabatini, and I've heard of Jerry, and Don Kirby. One of the hallmarks of McKee's career has been his most peaceful night of the year, Christmas concert, and I want to talk about that. Remind me to talk about that, which for 27 years has raised funds for the Fitchburg Salvation Army, which is probably one of my favorite charities. 99% of the money that goes to Salvation Army goes to people in need. Today, Marquis continues to teach music lessons, and he's available for teaching from his home in Lem. One of my first gigs when I graduated Berkeley, when I went on the road, was the Holiday Inn in Leominster. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And I used to play with this great drummer by the name of Joe Rizzo from East Boston, and we would always call it Leominster. As he has since the 80s. He still plays gigs regularly, both solo concerts and with his group and other ensembles. And his love and curiosity for his long-time passion has not wavered in the least. Several years ago, he took up learning a third instrument, the sitar. So you and George Harrison.
Well, yeah.
That's it. So, welcome to the show, Mark. And let's start at the beginning again. You grew up in Leominster, in the town of Leominster?
Yep.
Yep, great. And so you found your brother's guitar at 9. Were you playing it before that, or was 9 the start?
Well, after the Beatles hit, everybody was playing around with,
right.
With making believe and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But, my family was somewhat of a musical family. Like my father played jazz trumpet.
Mm-hmm.
He played with a number of different people like Dinah Shore, and he backed up a number of different people during the wartime.
Mm-hmm.
And when he got back from the war, he played like a lot of gigs, and then after that he kind of just pulled it out every once in a while. But he used to coach me and my brothers.
Yeah.
And so I basically really, other than watching the Ed Sullivan Show and seeing the Beatles and then wanting to play, when my brothers started playing the piano and the guitar and the trumpets, I used to watch my father coach my brother on Sunday nights for his guitar lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And my father had a thing he used to say, well, the guitar was kind of off limits to me. It was kind of like, you can play if you take lessons. And I kind of didn't want to take lessons. So I used to watch him coach my brother, and they used to take breaks, and every once in a while they used to let me pick it up and noodle around.
Mm-hmm.
But then I started sneaking. I learned how to read a chord chart, and then I started sneaking his guitar every once in a while. They used to keep it behind the sofa.
Yep.
And then I started just picking things up by ear, and melodies and stuff. And that's kind of how I get going.
It's interesting you talk about your father.
But then when they heard me play, I already figured out a whole bunch of stuff, and then when my father heard me playing, he kind of figured out that maybe I had a thing for it. So then it became okay that I didn't have to take lessons. So I never took guitar lessons. I studied piano.
Yeah.
I studied piano. My uncle was a classical piano player from Juilliard, and so I studied piano, but guitar was, I never had a formal guitar.
Did that transfer? The piano notes?
Yeah,
you know whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, time signatures, you know keys and stuff like that.
But
so you became a literate musician.
Well, I pieced together reading music, even with my uncle. I used to drive him crazy because I was learning like Chopin pieces and stuff like that, but I would pick a lot of it up by over and over listening to him play it and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So reading was a hard thing, but I learned how to read.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like I was figuring things off of records and stuff. That's primarily.
And that's how we did it. It's the nature of guitar is when you first get guitar as a kid, you want to learn some chords, what we call cowboy chords. G, C, D, F, that sort of thing. And once you do that, there you go. And that's why guitar players don't become great readers. It's just...
Bill, I did, that just cracked me up because I thought I was the only guy who referred to those open chords as cowboy chords.
Right.
Because I've said to people, I say, no, play cowboy chords here.
But I don't disparage that too. Sometimes that's the best chord to play for a thing. I used a D during that song we were just playing, but that's just natural. See, you're a flute player, you're a violin player, something like that. They learn that first page in their book, whole note. They learn the notes there, and they're reading the whole time. And they're not gonna go. We can make music the first week. Your flute player is playing Yankee Doodle Dandy or something like that. It's interesting. It's just a side story on me. I went to Berkeley and I was a half decent reader. I had nuns as so they started with reading, but I was always, it was not my favorite thing to do. But I played with the Platters. I went on the road with the Platters on and off for years, and we did a PBS special down in.
I played piano with them one time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for 7 gigs.
Yeah.
One of my students was their guitar player.
Oh, they went through so many of our guys.
Yeah, they went through a lot of people, and they got stuck. Piano player at the last minute. They were playing.
That's how I got that gig.
They were at the last minute, and one of my students was on the road with them, and they called me up, and I played, and then I played 7 more gigs playing piano.
Yeah, it's interesting. So we were doing a PBS special in Knoxville, with them with a full symphony orchestra. And it was the University of Texas, Tennessee's orchestra, and I was kind of intimidated by, and I went to Berkeley. We were always intimidated by New England guys, and there is a pecking order. Classical guys look down on jazz look down on rock looks on blues, and blues look down on folk guitar players playing cowboy chords. But Saturday afternoon we had the rehearsal, 70 musicians, and I used to just, and you do the arpeggios. And I would make my own arpeggios because it didn't really matter. But I noticed the harpsichord player was doing the exact arpeggios. I'm like, oh man, I gotta do it. Yeah. So I'm behind the violin players, right? In their charts, first time they look at them, it looked like EKG. They were like 132nd notes. They're reading it down the first time. I'm there, holy moly. So I did my thing. And when the Platters used to play Proud to Be an American was their walk-off song. And I got a Van Halen spot, and I wailed it, and then they all the violin players at the end of that rehearsal came around me. I'm there, what are they gonna tell me? I stink, and they say, "Wow, you're amazing." So it just goes to show. But many of us, we're playing like that, and we're not sitting around like, and that's why I want my next subject I want to talk. So you're like 10, 11, you're 5th and 6th grade. Did you do any kind of traditional concert band, jazz band in high school? Any of that stuff?
Nope.
I didn't either. I did a little bit of it,
Well, I was playing gigs when I was in high school. So I was playing gigs with a bunch of older guys. Everybody says that, but I was playing gigs with these guys who were like 10 years old, and they were playing all the time.
So you were the kid on a Thursday night getting in at 3 in the morning, and the teacher goes, Mark, at 10 in the morning, saying, "Can you wake up? Do you have problems at home?" No, it's like, no, I went to bed at 4, and I got up at 6.
Yeah. Well, my wife will tell you that sleep deprivation isn't much of a problem for me. I don't sleep that much. But that was true. I never missed school, and but that was it. You come home from a gig and you wound up. I used to watch W.C. Fielding movies after the gigs, get a couple hours sleep, and then go to sleep.
Yeah, none of the kids at home know who W.C. Fields is, but I do. Yeah. So that's interesting. That was with your father's coaching. Did your father coach you?
Yeah, he coached all of us. He used to get us together to jam on jam on different tunes, and we would play together, and we would play together, and one of the biggest things I remember about my father was one of the best lessons I learned from him was, like when you're at a band rehearsal,
yeah,
and the leader's trying to talk,
yeah,
and there's always a musician sitting there going, right, and then the leader flips out.
Yeah.
Well, my father, I remember very clearly one time my father just saying, listen, I'm going to tell you something. When you're practicing with a band, when the leader's talking, put your hands on your instrument and don't play. And I always remember that, because if you've been in the position of being a leader,
right,
that happens all the time, and it's like, for God's sake.
And that's an interesting thing. The term you use is coaching, which I think is an unusual term in terms of music. It's actually an interesting term versus teaching. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because that was coaching. That's not teaching. That's coaching. That's a little bit different.
Yeah. Well, we just used to play. We used to try to play tunes together, and my father. My father learned the way my father played. My father would play something like Body and Soul, and he'd be right on the money playing the changes. But I think he used to try to hide it from, like I really think my father, if you said, when you go to the D flat sharp 9 chord, he didn't know that. He the way he played was he would learn the melody really good,
right,
and then it was kind of like variations on the melody. He would improvise off of the melody, but it would sound great. It would sound right.
The
on
pros do that. No, the traditional jazz guys.
That's an older concept of playing jazz, I think, like where you play off the melody instead of off the changes.
Yeah. I noticed when you were soloing earlier, you're singing. You're singing the notes, just like a George Benson thing.
Yeah. Sometimes that gets a little out of hand with me. Like it's like.
But it stops you from going nuts, right?
Well, it's hard to play if like sometimes, like if you're in a recording studio and they say stop humming or stop, like I tend to do.
In a recording studio, I could see that getting in the way.
To do that, or sometimes I hum with the music, or like more like Errol Gardner would do. And if you're in the studio, sometimes they'll tell you don't realize that you're doing it. They'll say, try not to sing when you're playing.
And again, you said you were self-taught, but you didn't do the Berkeley thing or that sort of thing, but you did. You really did, man. Gigging with older guys at 15, 16 years old, that is college. Berkeley, supposedly, they try to put 20 years, they say, of gigs into 4 years, which, there's nothing like what you did.
Well, composition, like learning how to write music and composition. I did all the same things that they told you to do in music schools, which is, I played classical piano. I still do. Playing like Chopin or Ravel and Beethoven and all that stuff, but when I used to learn pieces, I would be analyzing them. Like I would know what the chord structures were, and so I learned how to write music. I learned how to write music by having my own band, and every time I wrote a thing, I would get it tried. I would get it tested out. Whereas, when you go to music school for writing music, you're in a class, and if you're lucky enough, they'll play your chart that you, I had my own band a lot of times playing my stuff, so sometimes I'd write a piece, and it wouldn't work out, and then I go back to the drawing board, or it would work out great, but that's how I learned.
Yeah, and back in those days, you were doing an arranging class at Berkeley, and 99% of the time, you never get to hear it.
Yeah.
These days, with the technology, you can just hit play, and it works.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2 things. I don't want to get, but back to your father's thing there. It's interesting. I don't know if you think this way, but I'm always thinking harmonically. Okay, what is Let's just get. What scale's gonna work on that? You know.
Yeah.
But your father wasn't thinking. So that's a C. C pentatonic will work there, but an E flat 7 after that. You know, he wasn't thinking that way.
No.
Which can get you in trouble sometimes.
Yeah.
If you're jamming over oddball chords like that. But okay, so
my concept is to use anything that you can to get you through.
Yep.
You know, like
right.
I sometimes you know, like I just play. You know, I don't. You know, I know the. You know, the analyzation of, I can analyze what chords and everything, but I don't really play like that unless I have to. You know, if somebody stops me and says, "What'd you do there?" A lot of times I can tell them, but so what I'm saying is I know all this stuff, but I just try to make it so that I just play. Yeah.
Cool. So we have a few pieces we're gonna do right now. Why don't you do your first piece now?
Okay.
And can you introduce it to the folks?
All right. This is a piece that was written for an ensemble, for a group. And I wrote this around 1975 or so. This is a piece called, but I'm going to play it as a solo guitar piece. This is a piece called Now They Don't Care No More.
stuff. Cool stuff. And we have a few videos we want to get into here. First of all, I wanted to ask you, it's interesting what I do. I'm always looking at right-hand technique, you know?
Yours what?
Right-hand technique. And it's, again, I know it's real jazz players always play it like that. I'm like, I always have that, like, I'm a real rhythm player. But a lot of real jazz guys have that hand. I've never been able to do it. Do you teach your students that, or do you go with what?
I'm not sure what you're saying.
Like the clench fest versus open fingers.
Oh yeah, I most of the time my hands open.
Nice, smooth, up and down, alternate picking, just great stuff, man. Sounds great. So we have 3 videos here. Can I Go is the first one we're gonna go over here. And this was shot at the Bull Run. The Bull Run's one of the best rooms in New England for original music. And I wrote down, my notes was melodic Lee-Ritenour. Does that relate to? I mean, I only listened to a little bit of it today.
Yeah.
Well, you introduce it. Tell the folks at home what Can I Go is about.
Oh, you mean like whose style it's?
Yeah. Well, tell us about the tune.
I like Lee-Ritenour, but I don't think it was written like in that vein. I don't know. I most of the time when I write a piece like that, I do it on the piano. Yeah. I never write on the guitar.
I always come up with better and more interesting ideas on piano. It's just because, you know, we get stuck into a certain kind of, you know, sort of regular patterns here. On piano, I'm not a good piano player. Therefore, I write more simplistic stuff. So, well, let's get into this. Can I Go? Bull Run. Is this what your full band? There was definitely a bunch of guys on stage.
Oh yeah, full band. My daughter's playing the piano.
Cool. So here, without further ado, Can I Go? Okay, so we are back here, and why don't we go right into the next one here, and erratic behavior. That was erratic. You guys are going nuts. What was that? A combination of Frank Zappa meets Miles Davis, or?
It could be. You know, I don't know. I don't give it much thought when I.
And did you write that all out?
Yes.
The head's written out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then because you're doing the same line with the keyboard player, I think.
More than the head. All the parts are written. Until the improvisation stuff.
Right. Yeah. Because again, the returns for your career, I heard a lot of things there.
Well, if you when it gets into where the band comes back in, the parts that the saxophone player and the keyboard player and myself, everybody's playing together, are pretty involved.
Yeah. How much rehearsal for that?
It's a funny. I played that tune with different versions of my bands.
Yeah.
But not a real lot of rehearsal. Guys, like if I have something that's real hard, they take it home and then we rehearse it. And
yeah, because you're in the 1% range there. Do you know what I mean by that?
The what?
Only 1% of musicians can do that. What I heard.
Oh yeah.
That's 1%.
Yeah.
And who are those guys? Where do you find them? Man and woman, guy, by the way.
What's that?
Men and woman.
Yeah. You know? We play some pretty involved stuff.
Yeah.
And we play some easy stuff too.
Yeah.
You know, we mix. You know, that might have been. You know, like sometimes in a concert we'll play something like that, and then we'll cool it out with a nice arrangement of something like Riders on the Storm or something.
And I saw you do something with a drummer. It was just you and a drummer, right? Going nuts.
Yeah.
On another piece.
Well, on on that erratic behavior, there's a section where we just play the drummer. Yeah.
Okay, without further ado, erratic behavior, and I wrote down jazz fusion next to it. You're gonna love this stuff. And by the way, before we go to that, all this stuff is on Marquis group on YouTube, right?
I think so.
We'll post this stuff at the end on the credits here. So without further ado, erratic behavior. Okay, we got one more video here, guys, and this one is Laurel. Tell us about Laurel. And this is a solo guitar, because we're going to do another piece. He's going to play a solo guitar coming up. Tell us about Laurel.
It's Laurel.
Laura?
No, Laurel.
Laurel, okay.
And it's a piece by a South American, Brazilian multi-instrumentalist named Egberto Gismonti. And I just like the piece. It's actually a piano piece. It was a piano piece. And I as you say, transcribed it, and I wrote it out, and then I learned how to play a solo guitar arrangement.
Cool. So let's hear it. Okay, we are back here for Mark's second piece here. What are we going to play now? What are you going to play?
I'm going to play a Beatles song.
Oh, let me say, Blackbird?
Nope.
Because I heard your Blackbird version. That's worth looking up on YouTube too.
Oh, yeah.
And you did a whole bunch of illegal notes in that. Just pull over there, show me your notes there, because Paul McCartney did not do that.
Yeah, well, Blackbird's a piece that every guitar player.
Yeah, sure. We all do.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course we did.
Right. So but it's also a very beautiful tune. So as you've seen on the video, I don't play it anything like
it's the Marquis version.
Yeah, it's like a whole different thing with improvisation and everything.
And look at this beautiful guitar, guys. 12-string. This is an Ovation. Years on this one, or is it new? How many, is it old?
No, I've had this for about
great, man.
15, 20 years.
That was a presentation series, if I remember.
Yeah, this is an Adamus, which is the upper line of Ovation. It's a nice 12-string.
And there's nothing worse than change the strings on a 12-string.
Yeah, there is.
I always have to get myself psyched.
There is something worse.
What?
Changing strings on sitar.
A sitar. We could talk about that next episode.
It's about 10 times worse.
Yeah. Let's hear this.
Here's a piece called You Won't See Me.
and again, if you follow Mark on YouTube, that was total Marquis style, totally unique style, very different than anybody. And this is sort of the thing that you must do when you're up at York Beach doing York Harbor Inn, doing solo guitar stuff like that, which probably helped during the COVID days when they wouldn't allow us to sing. It's interesting. I played a lot during that time, and I don't do a lot of that solo guitar stuff, so I was using loopers. Playing a part and then just playing over. But that's so cool. And what a great tune. It's like that Beatles, And when they wrote that song, it was probably 65, something like that. So they
know what I like in that, Bill? Talking guitar, the bridge.
Right, that's...
When it goes... Right, it goes from a minor, then it goes to a minor 7 flat 5, then to a diminished. It's kind of like...
But what I liked about it is, that's just so cool for like young kids.
Not only that, for a rock tune, it starts off in a Lydian mode, right?
What a cool tune. So we got one more piece here, and are you gonna? Is it?
You want me to play now?
Yeah, sure.
I'm gonna switch.
Okay. Yeah. So. What a great tune, and that was one of the ones the hundreds that they pumped out. They were just amazing. But that that bridge part, it was probably John, So what do we got now? What are we doing?
This is a piece called Still It's Like a Dream.
Mm-hmm.
And this is another tune. Some of these tunes I wrote a long time ago. This is actually pretty involved chord structure.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing as we're talking about guitars.
Right. Well, guitar players watch this, and they want to learn.
The chord structure. And
looks like it's an E in the key of E. Tell us about the chord structure.
It's in B.
Okay.
And it starts out, I don't know, it just kind of goes all over the place. Actually, it starts in E, but the tune is in B, I think. Don't even know.
Okay. Well, go on, man. Let me hear it.
All right.
There was a lot going on in that. I just cool hammer-ons, and I love this. I don't know what that was, but it was right in the middle there. It was like, wow, what was that? That's cool, man. So why don't we get into what's going on now? What is going on now with you, with the band, with your solo career, and your teaching? First of all, are you taking new students?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you just do advanced students?
I do people who are already playing, and I don't teach beginner.
Right.
Most of my students are people who are out playing.
Uh-huh.
Gigs, yeah.
And what kind of people are they? Young people, older people, or are they kids?
A lot of students have been with me for quite some time. All adults. I think
jazz guys.
Oh yeah. Jazz, rock, blues.
Yeah.
And I don't have. I think my youngest student is like 25 years old or something like that. It's not that I'm against teaching kids or anything. I don't get them, and everybody that I teach already plays.
Are you teaching a methodology, or are you teaching from a certain book, or how do you structure it?
I don't teach from a book, and I don't teach from a method. I just kind of take a look at what people are doing, and they talk to me about what they want to do, and then I just try to help them, get better like that.
So it's individualized to each student, customized to them, what they want to do, and I'm having a problem with this.
I try to suggest what the best thing for them to work on if they're trying to get to a certain place.
Cool.
With their playing.
So, going to, how's the band doing? Are you still with the band and still with those guys?
We played. Well, my band's changed. It's it had a lot of the same people for a long time.
Yep.
And it's changed throughout the years, but it's quite different now. I just recently went out with quite a different lineup, and we played a number of outside concerts this summer.
Cool. And I think I saw one of them on video. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm doing the solo thing. I'm doing a couple of different duo things. I
Duo with your daughter?
I do a duo with my daughter,
Right. I've seen some of those videos.
and then I do a duo with this woman who plays the piano and sings. Well, we play about half. We have a ton of songs,
Yeah.
and we play everything from like jazz tunes to vocal tunes to all kinds of stuff.
Cool.
Everything. There's plenty of room to play in.
And you're staying busy. You know, COVID seems to be ebbing a little bit. Gigs are happening right now. I've been playing quite a bit.
Throughout the whole COVID thing, me and my wife, we set up we had a thing called online hangout, and I played either solo or duo every Saturday night, all through.
Cool. Using like Venmo, where people pay you.
Venmo and PayPal.
I've seen friends of mine do quite well in that world.
Yeah, we did good. I did. It was all mostly like duos or me solo.
Yeah.
You know, and I did that all through the COVID, and then of course I taught online.
You know, musicians try to figure out. We're setting up for the last tune here, so excuse me. So we will post on our at the credits here how to get in touch with you, and really wanted to thank you for coming
Thank
to
you
our
for asking me.
place here.
It's nice.
And again, as I've told the people, I try to bring the best guitar players in the greater Boston area. And just because they're from the Boston area doesn't mean they're the greatest guitar players in the world. It's like we have as many great guitar players in this area as anywhere else in the country. And I don't know why. Maybe it's the Berkeley thing or something like that. But people need to know, just because they're not worldwide famous, that they're great guitar players. And it is what it is in our industry. It's a tough gig. It's a tough thing. But just because someone's a famous guitar player doesn't mean that they're great either. I mean, it's. Do you have opinions on that? It's like.
Everybody. I think everybody. The one thing that's in common is like whether. Whatever the title is or whatever thing is. Musicians, guitar players, they all love to play.
Right.
I can see, like, when I show up here, I can see what your guitar means to you, and people just love to play. And the cool thing about music is people can always get together on something.
Yeah.
Something to play. So you go out and you play music and you try to find your audience.
I don't know if you feel the same way I do. I try to be better than I was yesterday. Yeah. And tomorrow I want to be better than I am today. And I'll keep on doing it until these things don't work anymore. And there will come a time where they won't work anymore. Gigs, I always say that gigs, doors will be the big thing for me, because carrying stuff in and open up the doors, and there'll come a time when I can't carry this stuff, and that's okay. I'll play at home. So we're going to end with a blues thing right now. Again, this is McGold-RIFFS. We're back after 20 months, episode 32. And I'm going to try to do this once a month until I can't do it anymore. So why don't you start? We're going to do like a blues and G out. Thanks a lot, guys, and thanks for listening.
Why don't you start the show?
Okay.
you.